welcome to this arc review of A Cask Aged Blade by Benjamin Aeveryn. After 3 books, I am still not sure how to say that, but this is the third and final instalment of the Rainfallen Trilogy. And this is an arc review. There will be no spoilers for the 3rd book, but there might be for the 1st and the 2nd. I will try and hope that there isn't, but I can make no promises. Now this book comes out on the 5th of June in about a month's time, and I, for one, cannot wait for it. So we're going to do, because this is the 3rd instalment of a trilogy, we're going to do a quick recap over the 1st and the 2nd books. But there will be no spoilers, I don't think. But there might be. So Salt in the Wound is the very first book in the Rainfallen Trilogy. Look at it, it's beautiful. It opens in the very first few chapters with betrayal and death. Our characters, Galahad, Percival, Elaine, Lance, Faye and Guinevere, are treasure hunters. And they are tracking the long-lost treasure of the so-called long-haired priest, who Galahad has learned through books, and he's been tracking this treasure with his friends for years. He has made it his life mission. Now they find it in the very first few pages of this. So you can guess it doesn't all go to plan. And thus begins a story of revenge entwined with justice. The ultimate need for a very bad wrong to be set right. I really recommend you reading this. If you haven't already, I have a more in-depth review about it in the link up in the corner, and I will also link the video down below along with the 2nd one. And for a recap of the second book in the Rainfallen Trilogy is Secrets of the Thistle, and you could tell it is a bit more of a darker cover for this one. This one opens a few months after the events at the end of the first one. The Round Table is broken and scattered. Elaine has travelled alone to the Empire of the Thistle to search for answers and to make up for what she did in the first book. Faye, Betty, Errol and Bill are in the capital city of the unholy kingdom of Mercia, being New London. And they are struggling to traverse the outer rings of high society. And the hints of political machinations begin to uncoil around the events in this book. Now Galahad is also in the capital city, but to all intents and purposes, nobody knows he's there. He is far too busy licking his wounds after the end of the first book to pay much attention to anything going on. But most of all, he's hiding from himself. But Elaine finds herself in dire need of help, and she has no one else she can turn to, and he cannot resist her call. Now the Empire of the Thistle is more of a wild country than what we got in the first book, being just confined to Albion, and the Empire of the Thistle being more Scotland based. And it's got more creatures lurking in the wilds than Albion ever has. But there are many, many secrets in this land that need somebody to uncover them. And I'll also link the review video for the 2nd book down in the description below, so you can watch that one as well. I don't think there's any spoilers. I think these were all arcs, so I don't think there's any spoilers in any of them. Now this one is the 3rd book, the 3rd and final instalment of this trilogy, and it is called A Cask Aged Blade, referring to the sword that Galahad found in the cellar of that cathedral right in the first part of the first book. And this one opens not with Galahad and all his friends, but with Errol, and he's in the capital city of New London, witnessing the hanging of 6 nobles, which is unheard of, but the political climate has moved. And Errol is there to witness because Bill cannot make himself go to watch his own father hang. And Errol has a very tense conversation with his own father when he spots him at this event. It's a good first opening because it really sets the scene of the thread of this book. The political manoeuvrings which were ticking along in the background of Secret of the Thistle are now front and foremost and steadily growing in threat, culminating in the events of the end of the 2nd book, which I won't go into in case you haven't read it yet. There's conspiracies, murders, blackmail, and they all exist under the comforting stone of the capital city, and not just in the dark underbelly, but this is more the society and how it has warped itself around this mad king that they've got. Now, following the cataclysmic events at the end of the second book, Galahad is grieving his parents. He, Elaine and Faye are in the ruin of their town, and they're trying to rebuild the town of Wickerton, which was the goal in the very first book, to protect it. They do this by trying to replicate the magic which was found in the Empire of the Thistle, that being the magic of repelling the rain, which is how they got their cloaks, and they're going to try to put it to use to protect the town. But it's not going very well because Galahad only has a book to go off, and the book is not very helpful. So he's trying to do it more of a case of trial and error to try and get it right. And when it doesn't work, what he's done, he is still in the grieving process for his parents and those feelings of failure, of misery, resentment, loss, revenge, and the need for justice, because none of this had to happen. And he internalizes all this. He doesn't let anybody in. Still, he doesn't let anybody in. You feel like slapping him sometimes. He internalizes everything that he feels. He doesn't want to talk about it. And he wonders what the point of any of it is anymore. However, there is one character that he can focus and hone all this anger and resentment and thoughts of revenge in on. One person that is at the height of this pyramid, the one who gives the orders, the reason why the land is as it is. And that is Rohin Armin. That's how I read it in my head. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But he is the unholy king of Mercia. All the orders come from him. He is the master of everything. All the loss the characters have suffered, all the trials that they have had to go through, it has all been the fault of this guy. And Galahad is done. He has the barest outline of a plan rather than what he would usually do, which is plan the whole thing. He has the barest outline of how this is going to start and barrels on through with it. And you would think that I've given too much away, but this happens all at the beginning of the book. I think it's as long as the other ones. I'm just going to have a look. Yeah, the page count seems about right for what it was. I don't have a physical copy. You don't really get physical arcs. You usually get them on your Kindle. I don't think I've given any spoilers away because in this world, in the world that this is set in, this dystopian, Arthurian land of magic, legend, myth, modern technology, all coming together all in one, is you can never take anything for granted. And that one big event, one big focus event, can pale in comparison to what that big event actually awakes. And once the wheels of myth and legend and magic start to turn, there's very little to stop them, because nobody knows how anymore. The world has moved on, but the creatures and the magic is slowly seeping back into the world of man. And you can see it seeping back in the first book, maybe a little bit. It's not really a thing that's acknowledged. It's acknowledged in the second book, but only to... They think it's just the Empire of the Thistle that's suffering the most for this. But when the events of the third book happen, you can see that magic coming back a lot stronger. Now you can probably gather, if you've watched the review videos that I've done of the other two, that I liked it. One of the things I liked about this book is the cover art. Yet again, it is just perfect. The first one for Salt in the Wound was bright, it was hopeful, it was airy, it was vast, it was lovely. The cover art for the second one, Secret of the Thistle, was more dark, more ethereal, and you felt that the character was alone against the elements. Now the third takes the hopeful light of the first book and the darkness of the second and entwines them perfectly. I mean, the lighting, the setting, and this is a pivotal scene in the middle of the book, and it is just perfectly exactly how I imagined that scene to go, is exactly how the scene is on the front cover. So kudos to the artist. Now I've been sitting on this arc for about a week or so now. I was very wary to pick it up and start it simply because of it had a lot to live up to. I'd given Salt in the Wound 5 stars, I'd given Secret of the Thistle 5 stars, and this had a lot to live up to. It had the series to bring to a close, and it had a lot of expectations to meet. my expectations. And I did not want to put it on a pedestal. It had so many questions to answer which were raised in the second book. And I didn't want to put it on so much of a pedestal that no matter what it did, it would not get to where I thought it would. So I was wary about opening it. I'd read something else, which was Witch King, and then I read another one which I really didn't like. I ended up DNFing that one, so I need something that can bring me out, and I'm just going to sit down and I'm just going to start it. You know, bite the bullet. I know I'm going to read it eventually. I might as well just do it now. And while it didn't go in the direction I thought it would, it was absolutely no detriment to it. In fact, the story, the way this story goes, the way the different points of view intertwine, the way different events end up meshing together, it was skillfully done and much, much better than I could have imagined it to be. And that's why I'm not a writer. I am just a reviewer who likes to spout her mouth off about her opinion of books that I read. Not a writer. At every page turn, and I know it was on the Kindle, so at every button press, I was expected to be punched in the gut, because you can't get through 2 books and not have any higher stakes. And by the end, when the last page came up and said something like the end of Rainfallen or Rainfallen's End, I can't quite remember. I had experienced every single emotion possible. I was angry at times, I was ecstatic at times, I was shocked, I was enraged on behalf of some of the characters against other characters, and I just wanted to shake some of them, and I both, while reading, wanted to get to the end to find out what the hell happens, and alongside that was, I don't want to get to the end to know what happens. I don't want to know what happens because it can't be good. And although this didn't answer every single question I had from The Secret of the Thistle, this answered enough, and I feel it did enough, because in answering every question, then there's no more mystery. Some mysteries are more impactful if you don't get an answer. If you want an answer and you don't get it. If something just happens. And I thought this book did really well in not explaining those key parts of certain things. I'm so trying to dance around events because I'm so trying not to put any spoilers in this for anybody who reads it. It's not coming out for another month, and I don't want to spoil it. Now, not only as a reader do you go through so much reading this, but the characters themselves go through the ringer. I mean, you thought they went through the ringer in the first one, and then again in the second, but in this one, oh my god, you feel like just reaching through the page and just, giving them a hug. They go through some shit. All of them. Nobody appears unscathed out of this. And you get to see a side of them that is either only been hinted of in the other books, or you've just never seen. And there's still backstory to these characters that you don't know until you read this book, why they are the way they are, and how far they've come since we encountered them in the very first book. I think in world timeline, it's about 18 months since the events of the very first book. Which incidentally has a book birthday coming up because Salt in the Wound was very first published a year ago on the 9th of May. So in world, it's about 18 months. In our world, it's about a year. And Benjamin's writing style, I hope he doesn't mind me calling him Benjamin, his writing style continues not to disappoint. The way that he weaves old legends and folk tales of England into the narrative without it being the narrative is clever without being overly obvious. There's quite a few mythical creatures in this book, but there's a focus on one of them, and it doesn't look like the way Hollywood would portray it. It looks the way that the folk tales portray this creature, especially in England. It's portrayed differently elsewhere, but in England, and I know this because I've researched folk tales for Yorkshire, check those out too, this creature is described the way that it is described in this book, and the way that I think it was when it, I was going to say when it walked the earth. Do I think it is that much of a stretch? I mean, the land had dinosaurs, for God's sake. It isn't that much of a stretch for those remnants to become myth and legend. Don't worry, you're not going to have a T-Rex going in this. There's no dinosaurs in this book. Just in case you were wondering. It's not a dinosaur. And there's so many scenes in this book that are so well detailed and so, written just so well. Scenes with this particular creature in, scenes with the rain wights in. There's a way to make it more human, but not. I'm probably not making much sense there. I'm trying to get it out without giving any spoilers. I'm trying so hard. But in all the scenes in all the book, there is one scene close to the end that had me internally squealing and kicking my legs. I was actually outside, so I couldn't really do that. But internally, you better believe I was getting excited. Because this particular scene has such significance in Arthurian legend. It is unbelievable. And in this, it is skimmed over. In a blink and you'll miss it kind of event. But even in a blink and you'll miss it, it has a strong resonance. It has an echo. And I can't say what it is because it's near the end. But if you read this, you'll know exactly the scene that I'm talking about. And I'm not going to go into any more detail about the story. I don't want to spoil it. I heartily recommend you picking this up because not only did the first book get 5 stars, the second book got 5 stars. But this third one, if I could give it 10, I would. But my threshold is 5, so 5 is what it gets. And my God, what a series. What a series. I mean, to be a debut author, for this to be your debut trilogy. Oh my God. I have written stuff by authors that have been at this for years and it's not so good. I have read things that have been so hyped up, so talked about, and they haven't even come close to being this good. I cannot say enough about how good this series is consistently. There isn't a bad book among them. Usually, in the middle it falls down a bit. Not with this series. It just keeps going and going and going and getting you every single time. There is nothing predictable in these books. And I find that, frankly, amazing. Absolutely amazing. And thus, the series is ended. Or is it? It is. The world that has been built, the world of the Rainfallen series, it is so vast and it encompasses so much and it has so much potential. Do I think the next book that Benjamin puts out will be about this world? Probably not. The guy could probably use a break. Do I think he will never ever return to this world? No. It would be. I think it would be easy to return to this world. Not with the same characters, but in this sort of mythological, dystopian world, there is potential to be dropped absolutely anywhere. When this book comes out on the 5th of June, I will be putting the link to it down in the description below. But until then, pre-order it, follow it, set a reminder on your phone when it comes out. Please tell me I'm not the only one that does that for books that are coming out, is set an alarm on their phone. And let me know down in the comment section below if you have read either Salt in the Wound, Secret of the Thistle, or the short novella Black Cap, which takes place in the same world, which I recommend that one too. I know at least 2 of my friends have picked up Black Cap just because of these videos, and you cannot tell me how proud I am that they enjoyed it. I was practically on tenterhooks waiting. Like, do you like it? Do you like it? Do you like it? Because I know that it is a wonderful, wonderful series, and I'm quite sad that it's ended. And with that, so ends this ARC review video. Unfortunately, I cannot prolong the book anymore. If I continue to talk about it, I'm gonna spoil something because I know I am. So it's best that I stop now. So let me know in the comment section down below if you like this kind of story, if you want to read this series, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel because it all helps my algorithm, and as always, keep reading.